Hello and welcome to WTO Forum. Every day, companies large and small move billions of dollars of goods and services across borders, and they do so under the rubric of WTO rules. These rules form the framework for global commerce, but they have not been updated for some time. The Doha round of global trade negotiations is stalled. And as governments contemplate the way forward, the question is, what do businesses, the businesses that move these goods and services, think that we in the WTO should be doing? The question is, how can the WTO and the global trading system deliver more for businesses? We're very fortunate to have with us today two business leaders who've devoted a great deal of thought and energy to this question. Terry McGraw, the Chief Executive of McGraw-Hill Companies of New York City, and Victor Fung of the Li Fung Group in Hong Kong. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good to be with you.
Terry, what can the WTO do? How would you, if you could wave a wand and make things different, what sort of things should the WTO be doing for you and your business?
Well, good to be with you, Keith, and it's always good to be with my good friend Victor Fung. We are both a part of the International Chamber of Commerce, which represents businesses around the world in terms of talking about a lot of the things that we need to be doing. Most importantly, everything is about achieving economic growth. If you're not achieving economic growth, then there's no job creation. You're probably underinvesting, and standards of living and prosperity are going to be in question. And therefore, everything that we're about is economic growth. And if you're growing, then you're going to get the job creation. From our standpoint, one of the big areas in terms of being able to achieve economic growth is what is your trade and investment agenda. And if you are doing well in terms of your trade and your investment agenda, you're probably achieving that kind of growth. So the World Trade Organization is a centralized body that produces a lot of rules and dispute resolution and things that help businesses be able to do that kind of commerce. However, we have an uneven economic world. We have some, countries, especially right now, our emerging markets that are doing extremely well. Developing countries are also doing very well. And the advanced world is in economic decline right now. And therefore, the current trade agenda needs to help establish those rules that will allow us to actually promote the right kind of communication to be able to get these initiatives done.
Victor, what can the WTO do to jumpstart the global economy?
Well, first of all, Keith, it's great to be at the WTO. It's always great to have a conversation. What I would say is I agree completely with what Terry has said. The whole name of the game is to create prosperity and jobs for the world. The first thing I would say, Keith, is that the WTO and the multilateral trading system over the last decades have actually done that job admirably. And let's not, first of all, forget that. Now we're coming to a world that's much more complex. First of all, the production system has evolved. No longer are we so simplistically making everything within one country and exporting it to be consumed in another country. But things are actually made all over the world in several countries, and parts are being assembled and so on. So first and foremost, I think the WTO rules must be modified to take care of that reality. Second, I think from the business standpoint, what we're really concerned about is really to facilitate further trade, continuous reduction of impediments to trade. And one of the things that we focus on, of course, is the cost of doing business. We need to bring the cost of doing business down. And this goes into an area where we need to actually make the customs duties a little easier to understand and goods to be moving through customs a little faster in what the people in the trade would call trade facilitation. And I think we really need to do something with that particular agenda. But the key is, at the end of the day, we need a better deal for the consumer. We also need to make sure that on net, we must be creating jobs and creating jobs for wide communities all over the world.
So a lot of this is just improving the overall nuts and bolts, the basic functioning of the system, Terry, then.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing continuum. And Victor is exactly right. You mentioned, Keith, up front, that the Doha round was flawed or failed or didn't meet the promise that it had. Well, actually, there was a lot of awfully good things that did come out of the Doha round. And Victor was talking about trade facilitation. When you're talking about bringing the cost down, the cost of doing business down, and getting cross borders, more efficiently is very important. And so, through some of that trade facilitation initiative, we were able to do that. We were also able to get after duty-free, quota-free market access, for the least developed countries, helping them to be able to create that agenda by which they can grow and participate in the system. So the trade facilitation aspect was one that was very good, and secondly, the development for emerging markets, and helping them get to where they need to be.
And the business community really can provide the kind of energy that maybe the negotiations at the moment are lacking.
Absolutely. I think it's safe. It's right to say that so far the agenda has been tops down and government driven. What we really need at this juncture is because of the growth of international business, especially the growth of small and medium-sized businesses from around the world, is to start listening to what the businesses have to say from a bottoms up. From where we sit, I think one of the key things is the rule that is very now used in the WTO of saying that when we have a trade negotiation, it's sort of a Big Bang approach. Unless we agree on all aspects of that particular negotiation, we don't agree on anything. Something called a single undertaking. I think that whole thing perhaps needs to be relooked at, mainly because the world has gotten much more complex. The number of members in WTO have increased dramatically, and it's hard to get immediate consensus with over 100 economies. So I think what we really need to do is to come up with some pragmatic rules. Perhaps some ideas could come from the business community on how we can actually move the ball forward. But I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is that although we have somewhat stalled in the negotiations at the WTO level, this is no reason to abandon the WTO or the multilateral world trade system. If anything, we need to update and strengthen it because it has really served the world in good stead, and we really need to preserve and make that stronger.
That's right, Victor. Absolutely. As the system becomes more complex, as more economies are growing and the world is growing up at a very fast pace, it is not the time to pull away from the WTO, it's to go to the WTO. Now, when we started the Doha round, again, the world was very uneven between emerging markets, developing countries, advanced economies, and the like, and it was very hard to get a comprehensive multilateral agreement on this because everybody had different economic needs. Well, as the economy grows and everybody is starting to participate at a higher level, now we've got to get after some of that complexity and make sure that there's a multilateral system of rules and procedures by which we can achieve that economic growth.
Victor, your final thoughts?
Well, my final thought is very simple. It is time for the global business community to speak up. We have actually benefited from the system. We have relied on governments to carry us. I think it is about time we as consumers and as businessmen actually speak up and provide the impetus for the next stage of WTO's development.
Terry McGraw, you have the last word.
If trade and investment is a major vehicle that is going to help achieve economic growth and job creation, then everybody has to be a part of it. The conversation is way too low. Victor is right. The voice of business isn't loud enough. It isn't substantive enough. It isn't helping to bring people together. Government and business need to work together in terms of formulating this kind of system. And when we start talking about the things that business does for consumers, we need to have a better conversation that brings everybody into the fold of understanding why trade and investment is so important to the creation of better economic growth and job creation. So we've got to get our marketing and communications arm up, and everybody needs to have that, be a part of that dialogue.
Terry McGraw, Victor Fung, thank you very much, both of you, and thanks to you for watching WTO Forum.